Okay, my last video, I ran out of time on my little recording device. But this one, I'm starting fresh, so maybe it will be 40 minutes long. In speaking of the soul, we should consider the heart, which is the center of psychic and emotional life. Great praise has been raised in its honor, and it is considered wise to act from its dictates. The truth is that the heart, when not correctly educated, is the greatest enemy of the human being, because it constantly leads man to make mistakes. The heart is like the soul of a child. It immediately attracts any vibration or force which has the power to impress or drive a man to commit acts which he will subsequently repent. The invisible world which surrounds us is a receptacle where good and bad sentiments are attracted and taken at face value by the heart in expansive moments. Afterwards, the mind suffers serious disturbances due to these emotional states. We can thus see that love as well as hate is blind. A man in love will lose and sacrifice all for the woman he loves. He who hates carries within him the germ of his own self-destruction. Love should at all times be governed by reason, in order that it may be a positive force for man. Otherwise, it is a force as blind as hate. Of course, it is infinitely better for man to love than hate, but it is necessary to know how to love, and to love impersonally, without selfishness. How few know true love. A woman falls in love and believes that she loves. Generally, this supposed love is due to a deceitful heart. It is an intoxication of psychic magnetism, which produces a kind of euphoria, which has been called love. When the desire for possession is satisfied and the intoxication is over, this pseudo-love ends. This is the most common cause of matrimonial shipwreck. A couple marry very much in love and discover after a time that they are only joined by habit and a legal contract. This is very natural, as human passion is like a gale that blows and then dies down. Only love, which is born from the perfect union of heart and brain, can be called real. This love is immortal and eternal because it is within the vibrational field of the spirit, and everything spiritual is sacred, divine, eternal, and immortal. The key to many secrets is hidden between the lines in what has already been stated above. One who can read and understand can make use of these secrets. Wisdom cannot be communicated. Only basic facts can be presented for the purpose of study and achievement. Chapter 4. The Mind. The mind is man's magic wand. It is the marvelous toy with which it is possible to travel millions of miles per second to the furthest planet, as distance and time are non-existent for the mind. It is a kind of fantastic magic hat from whence we can extract everything. One of the Hermetic principles states all is mind. The universe is mental. Only upon understanding that all that exists in a material sense is only mental power, whose vibratory wave descended until it became solid, can we understand the importance of studying and educating the mind. The brain is similar to a radio transmitter, which constantly sends out and receives radio waves. Of course, thought waves are very much more subtle and powerful. All thought is electromagnetic energy of high vibration. The brain is a powerful generator of energy whose vibratory rate depends upon the degree of culture and intellectual development of an individual. Due to this, it is very difficult for a man who has a long mental wave to understand one with a short mental wave. Sometimes interminable discussions arise between two people who believe, rather than sustain, the same thing, but who do not understand each other due to different vibrations. In the mind we have the doorway, not entrance, to what we know as the fourth dimension or energy level. All that can be imagined by man is a reality of the energy level, and therefore may be accomplished in the material field. The process of thinking produces emissions of electromagnetic energy, which gives origin to a being possessing a certain degree of conscience, who will live on the energy level. This being will have a conscience in relation to his mental and psychic state at the moment it is generated, and will become his true child. All our habitual thoughts are our mental children, and which, as all children do, must nourish themselves from their parents. In agreement with this, we can understand the truth of that aphorism which says, "As a man thinks, so is he." These mental children are those who will decide the future destiny of an individual, who will bring him good or bad luck, according to the vibratory quality. There are times when we meet someone who causes us great mental sadness or depression, and that is due to the fact that we attract their vibratory group of mental children, which in this case are of a negative character. With other people, we feel happy and confident, and our spirits are raised. It is vitally important to choose our friends carefully, avoiding those who emit negative irradiation of a pessimistic or fatalistic character, as all meetings or conversations produce an interchange of magnetism and mental material. On the mental level, all thought is material, as concrete as a stone or a chair in the physical world. If we could see into the mental level, we would see every individual surrounded by mental shapes in accordance with their personal or dominant vibration. With passionate or strongly instinctive individuals, we see tigers, bulls, hyenas, etc. An individual full of love toward his neighbor will constantly send out thoughts in the shape of beautiful flowers and plants. On the other hand, a miser will look similar to an octopus with a great number of tentacles. A narrow-minded individual will have the shape of a cube. If an individual could at any given moment concentrate all his mental energy on one single aim, he could obtain miracles. In practice, during the day, our minds jump giddily from one thought to another, and there is no rest even at night during sleep. This continuous wandering gives rise to a fantastic wasting of energy, as it produces in the individual a state of scattered energy. To achieve a better life, we must master our imagination in order not to create a hard and negative fate, because all thought materializes. One who thinks he is dogged by bad luck, for example, reaches a state of negativism, which is followed by misfortune and misery. One who does not believe in himself transfers his thoughts to others, who at heart will think little of him. One of the most harmful habits is that of lying back in an armchair to dream, letting thoughts wander freely. This habit is equivalent to opening the door of the mind into an ocean of mental vibrations which can carry a state of depression or rage. In the space surrounding the earth, waves of thought like radio waves vibrate with the thoughts of all the inhabitants of the planet. Man can never be sure whether what he is thinking is his own brainchild, or perhaps was drawn from outside. It is necessary to educate the imagination, to allow only beautiful, positive, and optimistic thoughts, thoughts of success, peace, and prosperity. In this way, we will be on the right wavelength of everything good and positive, and close our minds to malevolent influence. One who is capable of maintaining a fixed mental picture in his imagination, without allowing this to be erased by other thoughts which obtain marvels, as the mind is matter and the matter is mind, that is, energy and matter are different manifestations of the mind. In the energy field, the mind is like an ovoid which surrounds the head, an ovoid whose size is directly related to the conceptual field of the individual. This ovoid is like a closed field of electromagnetic energy, which, upon intense thought, opens in a set direction. All illness and mental disturbances originate when this ovoid is invaded by malignant or negative powers outside the individual, veritable demons called in by vice, bad desires, evil thoughts, and wrong deeds. In order to clarify this, let us examine briefly what happens after death. When the spirit leaves the dead body, a separation also takes place in the lower animal instincts of man. That is, an assembly of the baser passions and evil deeds. This we call the astral shell, as it is like a bark which covers the astral body. Normally, this shell disintegrates after a time due to lack of energy. Nevertheless, when this shell is very strong, it fights for survival and seeks individuals in which to introduce itself in order to continue existing on the material plane. When one of these enters the mental ovoid of an individual, a marked change of character is noted as the individual takes over the baser and instinctive personality of the deceased to whom this shell belonged. All manner of obsessions come from this, and if the shell is sufficiently powerful, it may completely dislodge the spirit, thus producing madness. In other more serious cases, there are various usurping entities which fight for the body, thus producing raving madness. A high percentage of insanity is due to this cause. In some cases, it is possible to expel these entities, as they are afraid of good, pure, well-balanced, strong-willed people with magnetic or solar characters. Spiritualist seances are the place where these shells roam to feed on the energy of the medium and those who form the invocation chain. It is for this reason that mediums suffer nervous exhaustion and wasting, as they are giving their energy to these invisible vampires who mock them, pretending to be disincarnate spirits. Those who are deceived and injured are those who attend these seances, sincerely believing that the spirits of the dead can materialize. They are not aware that they are doing great harm in keeping those entities alive which as they absorb part of the consciousness of the participants, are rendered capable of acting consciously for evil. When science proves the existence of these entities, we will have taken a great step toward the treatment of madness, obsessions, and mental and nervous ailments. All illness originates in the mind, and only after a certain period of time is manifested physically. Chapter 5. Desires. Multiple and varied are the desires of the human being. To desire something is as habitual and natural as breathing. Desire is another of the paths along which man squanders his mental energy. If we observe ourselves carefully, we will see that during the day we desire many things of minor importance. If we abstained from these futile desires and concentrated our energy on one thing, it would be much easier to obtain what we desire, as desire is a powerful force of attraction that acts as a magnet which draws toward us what we desire. Desire is one of the forces which shackles the human being to matter, as he is a slave to his own desires. In order to slough off these bonds, he must teach himself to develop only uplifting thoughts, which are those which originate from the Spirit, and which, far from enslaving, liberate and uplift. They are unsatisfied, instinctive, and psychic desires, which turn into obsessions and may lead to madness. As in the case of thoughts, desire is a creative force which gives life in the energetic field to an individual whose vibrations are in harmony with the moral quality of the desire. These invisible children feed on their Creator and do not abandon Him until they come to life in matter or die away. Purely passionate and instinctive desires are veritable bloodsuckers, which penetrate the psyche, undermining vitality. Vice is uncontrolled and excessive desires, that is, a formation of electromagnetic energy, which has acquired consciousness. This being desire, let me read it again. Vice is an uncontrolled and excessive desire, that is, a formation of electromagnetic energy, which has acquired consciousness. This being desire only lives if it receives regularly a certain quality of energy, which only comes from the satisfaction of the desire. Due to this, it is so difficult to overcome a definite vice because, to attain this, the negative coagulation must be disintegrated by willpower. Vice is easily transmitted because in many cases it happens that a being desire cannot again drag its subject toward vice and seeks a more propitious field in another being. A teetotaler can be converted overnight into a habitual drinker. Incubi and succubi are solely being desires of powerful vitality, vampires which constantly seek victims on which to feed. There are certain individuals who deserve pity, who are veritable repositories of a variety of being desires, wherein each one is fighting for its life and endeavors to devour its fellows. These men live dominated by strong and contradictory tendencies which they must follow for the sake of peace, as these vampires give them a certain breathing space after having been fed. It is not possible to establish how far the mental function is crippled by the actions of these creatures, but it is possible to state that a high percentage of the decisions and tendencies of the individual are dictated by these thieves who perturb his thoughts with their passionate vibrations. As one interesting example, I mentioned the vice of cigarette smoking, which brings to life a special being formed by the energy of the burning tobacco and the smoker's pleasure. This entity stirs up a constant restlessness in the smoker, which can only be appeased by lighting a cigarette. Based on this example, readers can analyze other being desires of a more intimate nature, which enslave their creators. Now, I'm going to stop right here and finish out this video, but I want to give you my experience. I'm not really proud of it, but I'm glad that it happened and I got through it and I learned from it. But at one time, I had, how do I say it? Well, I was living with a man that I wasn't married to, and I had all these old thoughts that religion gives you, that, oh, that's such a sin and you're so bad, and I wouldn't show my face in church again. But I wanted to be spiritual, and so I started reading books that would help me understand how to be spiritual. And I was reading one about automatic handwriting and different things like that, and I do believe that when you want to contact spirit and you do something deliberately to do it, your intention has to be pure, and mine wasn't. Because I did attract the energies of some of these little vampire-like beings. Like they're like children that feed off of you, and they know your thoughts, and they influence you. And I was influenced by them, and it was driving me crazy. And I could like talk, I had voices that talked to me, and I talked to them, and they were driving me crazy. That's all I can say. They were driving me crazy. I hated them. I even went to a church, and I didn't even believe in this, but I said, see if you can exorcise these out of me. And they did their mumbo-jumbo thing, and it didn't work. They were still there. So what happened was, one day I read a really good book by Joel Goldstein called Practicing the Presence. And in it, he explained that everything is God. And I had never entertained that concept that everything, visible and invisible, is God. And I thought, well, I shouldn't hate any part of God. And I was hating these beings, these invisible beings. So what happened was, I decided I would talk to them and take command of them and tell them they were like naughty children. And that's what I said. I said, you're like naughty children, and you're driving me crazy, and I'm going to tell you something, and you will know it's true because you know my thoughts. In spite of yourself, I love you because I know who you are. You're part of God, and you don't know who you are. But I know who you are, and I tell you right now, I will not allow you to talk to me anymore, but I will let you listen to the books I'm going to be reading. You can stand over my shoulder and hear everything that I read, but you cannot talk to me. And do you know, they had bothered me a couple of years, but after I convinced them, because, they were in my mind, they knew that I wasn't kidding. They knew that I loved them, and they didn't know what to do about that. Because always when you love the enemy, that's what Jesus said. They were like the enemy to me. And so I loved them, but I treated them like naughty kids. And I said, you cannot speak unless spoken to. And you can learn about the things I'm going to be learning about, because I'm going to read a lot of good books. And you're welcome to look over my shoulder and take in whatever pleases you to want to know about yourself and about God and everything. That was the deal I made with them. And they quit talking to me. Now, they'd been talking to me a couple of years, and I was very, very depressed. A lot of times I just slept all day because I was so depressed, and I even wanted to take my life. But I was too chicken to do that. I couldn't bring myself to do it, but thank goodness. But they did go away and quit bothering me. And I started coming out of it. And I started reading many good books. That's why I like to read good books to people online, because I know this information helps. It helped me. But also, guess what? It helped them, those beings, those invisible beings. Because a couple of years afterwards, after I hadn't heard from them in a couple of years, I did talk to them and ask them, are you still there? And they said yes. And they said thank you. And they were genuinely happy to have learned what they learned by looking over my shoulders, but not saying anything. And I don't know what power I had to make them obedient to my will, except that they did know that I loved them, so they must have felt that energy of love that was compelling. And I informed them of the things over that couple of years that I read that helped them. And so I do know that they're talking the truth when they say there are these little negative little entities that like I was reading about here, that are fighting for life. They have to get you to do certain things to give them vitality to keep living. But I think they could learn to live on a different kind of energy, not the negative energy of hurting you or confusing you or seeing you become so badly disturbed. I was in a mental institution 3 or 4 times I put myself in. I never stayed very long, but when I came out, I never got well until that day that I read that book. And then I was on the mend. But it's because I decided to love and not to hate. And I think that was a powerful thing to do. Now, other people might be dealing with some of these kind of little things that are worse. And maybe, I can't say that love them and it will work. But I sure believe it would. And you might as well try it if you've got anything like that bothering you. love them and tell them they've been naughty kids, and tell them, go to the peanut gallery and no words from you. You can listen, but you can't talk. And anyway, that was just a simple thing. Only for so long I didn't know to do it. But when I did it, it worked. And I'm just bringing the skeleton out of my closet of this having happened to me, because it gave me information that I can share with others, and it showed the power of love, even over something that isn't very easy to love. So what I want you to do is just comment if you wish, and I would love to hear of anybody else having an experience like that. And I would love to hear if anybody would repeat what I did and have success. I would love to hear about that too. Because we're all here to heal ourselves and our planet and one another. And this is what my life's work is. And I'm not going to read any more of the book right now. That'll be in the next session, where I will read chapter 6, which, guess what it is? Sex. And that's a confusing one. A lot of people need to hear what they have to say about this. So, over and out. This is the Dove Lady. Talk to you again real soon.